black thing go from left to right, and I thought, I'm going to die out here. No one's ever going to know. I couldn't believe what my eyeballs were showing me. I'll never forget how evil the eyes were. It was horrible. I mean, I've never seen nothing that evil.
It ran towards me at a rate that I can't even explain. Turned and stared at me, and this look of, I just want to kill you. I want to say it was human, but it wasn't.
He was yelling at me to grab a gun. I was like, for what? He said, just grab a gun. And there's footprints all the way to the door of my house. It had went inside my garage all the way to the door.
911, what are you reporting?
Jesus Christ, you better...
Sir?
See ya!
Hello?
Get somebody out here.
What's going on now, sir?
That son of a bitch is about 6'9", I don't know.
Do you see him now, sir?
Yes, I'm looking right at him.
Uh-oh.
You're listening to Sasquatch Chronicles. Check us out online at sasquatchchronicles.com. If you've had an encounter, email me. My email address is wes@sasquatchchronicles.com. Welcome to the show, everyone. Thanks for being here tonight. Starting to get my voice back. Actually, you know what? It's Friday night. Let's get a little beat going here. There we go. Friday night. Thanks so much for being here tonight. Going to be talking to Bo, and Bo is extremely nervous. He really didn't want to come on the show, and I asked him if he'd come on. I know he's a fan of the show, and so he'll be coming on tonight. He's a little bit nervous. Bo, there's definitely no reason to be nervous. But Bo had a very fascinating account that happened to him almost 20 years ago. I want to say it was 17, 18 years ago, where he actually hit one of these creatures. And he was so nervous after he hit it, he didn't know how to explain to anyone what he had actually hit. And I know in the last year or so he's been listening to the show, and so I asked him to come on and talk about it. So look for Bo's encounter coming up here shortly. I'll also be talking to Tom, who's a member of the site. And I believe I had Tom on episode 319, where him and his brother had an encounter. And he recently moved out to a property in North Carolina, and he's actually had activity out there, a scary encounter when he was up in his tree stand. So we'll be talking to him tonight. If you've had an encounter and you'd like to be on the show, shoot me an email. My email address is wes@sasquatchchronicles.com. How are the members doing tonight? Appreciate you guys being here again and listening to the show. Let's jump into it tonight. I want to welcome Bo to the show. Bo, thanks for coming on, brother.
Awesome. I appreciate it, Wes. Like I said, I just, I love your show, and I love how you are as a person towards, making people feel comfortable. And I drive a truck 10 hours a day, and like I said, I listen to you all the time, and your show. And after what happened to me years ago, after listening to your show and hearing about other people out there that's in my boat, it's really kind of like, it made me feel relaxed. Just really kind of, knowing that there's this has happened to other people, it just kind of, really helped.
Yeah, no, I hear you. And like I said, it's just you and I having a conversation. There's no reason to be nervous. And I know you are, but there's really no reason to be nervous, man. I really am a nobody. I'm just fascinated with your encounter. If you would you kind of start from the beginning and walk us into what happened? What did you hit? What did you see? Walk us into this whole encounter.
Thank you. Okay. All right. Okay. It kind of starts a little. My encounter happened in the year 2000. I was 19 years old. But before that, the setting, there's live here in Urbana, Ohio. There's a lake, and it's surrounded by woods that a family friend of my parents owns, and it's been in their family for years, and it's kind of been a camping spot for a bunch of us families to go out there and get away. And it used to be an old gravel pit back in the 50s and 60s, and they kind of made it into a lake, and it's surrounded by woods. And I couldn't tell you how big it is, but it's off Route 4. I'll tell you, that's, if you look anywhere on Google Maps, off Route 4, kind of by Springfield, you'll be able to see it. So I've looked at it a couple of times, and so it just we've always went out there and with my mom and dad growing up. It's real secluded. We call it the lake, and it's private. They keep it pretty private. They got a gate, and there's a lot of fences back there through the woods. To kind of to keep it secluded. And I remember growing up. Just always going out there, and for always I remember now. I think a lot of people back then knew a lot more about what was going on out there than what they ever told. I think even my mom, knew a lot too. Just us being kids growing up out there, always going camping. The subject of Bigfoot really wasn't talked about, a whole lot. Especially if we were kids, and it scared us. But I know one thing though, they never let us venture off in the woods by ourselves. There's always an aunt or an uncle or somebody out there who keep an eye on us. And now looking back, it always felt like something you were being watched. I hear that people say that on your show, and then I look back like, I always felt the same way. But I always felt like it's just creepy out there. And there's always this wildlife out there, and it's woods for a couple miles, and like I said, just real secluded. But my counter in the year 2000, that's the year I graduated, and through high school and everything, me and my buddies, we'd always go out there to that lake, and there was a lodge out there and a little cabin, and being in high school, we take our beer and whatnot and go out there and party on the weekends. It was our little getaway. And I couldn't tell you, I know it was warm out. It was the summer of 2000. We were out there partying, and I couldn't really tell exactly what time. I know it was late, maybe 1 or 2 a.m., o'clock at night, 1 in the morning. And I remember, of course, saying bye to everybody. And, there's a long lane that goes back to the lake. I had a 95 Pontiac Grand Am, and it was a 4-door. I had all my windows down, and I was leaving. And I remember when you pull out to the gate, where you get onto the road there, I'd make a left to head towards, that's the way I would take to go back to my house. Well, being a kid, probably had a buzz or whatnot, being a stupid kid. Well, I turned left, and I remember hitting the gas. I hit the gas really quick and kind of taking off, maybe a little bit of peel. But
yeah.
Once I got up, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good. I was just laughing. I was like,
okay.
Yeah, a normal 19-year-old hitting the gas, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and sometimes my Bluetooth might be like a half a second delayed. So if you go to, sometimes I might be off a little bit if you say something.
Oh, you're okay.
I don't cut you off. Okay, cool. So I hit the gas and took off, and I think it was about 75 to 100 yards. I got there on the road, but it's a road. There ain't really no cars on a whole lot at nighttime, and it got to like maybe 55, 60 miles an hour. I got there pretty quick. Out of the left side of the road, which was the other side of the road, coming across, and I only seen it for I only had a split second to see it. It was a 2-foot tall. Now I know what it was. Back then, I was so lost and freaked out over what this thing was. It was a little 2-foot tall, hairy. What I know now was what you call a juvenile Bigfoot was running across the road, and it literally ran right into the front side where my headlight is of the car, and I kind of hit it on top of him running into it. And I remember his head, his face was right there in my headlight. And like I said, I think I even had my brights on. But so I seen his face, and everything, and the impact. Now since then, I've hit a couple of deers, and that was some serious impact. I didn't know how much impact them are when you hit them, but when I've hit them deers lately, I've looked back like that's how much, for as little as this thing was, that it was almost the same impact. Like this thing on top of it, running across the other side of the road, riding the side of my car. It was a hard hit, and and like I said, all my windows were down. I don't think I had the music on real loud, but when he hit, my headlight lit his whole face up, and it was just the hard impact. And I remember he flew backwards. I remember him flying back, and his facial expression, it was just like when he was running across the road, I think it wasn't like he was down on all fours, but I think like he might have been for a second. But I remember I just have this image of him being on like three, like have one of his hands down and kind of coming up at the last second, maybe to where he was on two legs when I hit him, like he knew that it was coming. And I know his head went right into my headlight. And like I said, the headlight lit his whole face up. And I'll tell you the details here in a second of what I've seen. And he flew back. And at this moment, I'm hitting the brakes. But one thing that stuck in my head still to this day is when I hit it and it flying back. And I don't know how to explain it. Like if you heard somebody fall on the concrete, hit their head on the concrete, you kind of hear that thump.
Yeah.
That like after it flew back, I swear I heard that thump like when he flew back on the concrete. Like at that moment, it was like right beside me, and I heard that thump, like where I think his head just hit the concrete super hard, and I know I hit the brakes. The impact was hard enough to slow me down a little bit, and as I hit the brakes, I didn't really I didn't come to a stop, but as I was slowing down, at that moment, I had no idea what that was, but I know, what I seen. Like I said, my high beams on, I caught, I seen it all, his hair and fur, or, as I was slowing down, and I didn't know, I don't think I remember if I knew if I should stop, but once I got slowed down, that's when I heard a roar, that roar, scream that I've heard you guys talk about, on your show. And it wasn't until last year that I've been watching your show, and I think all this stuff that I've heard from your show, I can relate back. It's like I've heard people on your show say, you hear that scream, that roar, it rattles their insides. And for years, I swear that's what I felt. Like I just, when I think I got down to maybe, I'm guessing 30, 35 miles an hour, because I didn't know whether to stop or to go. And that roar out of the woods, I didn't see where it was coming from, but I did hear like brush and trees moving, and I just heard that roar, and I even remember all my windows were down, and I kind of clenched up for a second, and I know still to this day, I don't know how I hit the gas to go, but I hit the gas, and it just totally put me in shock. I didn't know what just happened, and so I'm hitting the gas, and now I'm just kind of freaking out driving now. And now you go on, when you drive, you go up about maybe not even about 1/8 of a mile, not too far down, and there's a light out in the middle of nowhere, a flashing yellow light. And for me to go back to my house, I got to make a left, and it's like a big U, like you make a left, and I got to go back behind the lake in the woods, kind of head, and it's kind of a curvy road to head back towards, my mom's at that time. And, after, like I said, when I heard that, when I was slowing down, I heard that god-awful roar, scream. I don't know what it was, something big. Like I said, I clenched up. As I got away, I didn't hear the roar, or it went away from what I can remember. And I know I had been drinking that night a little bit, nothing too crazy. I've never been one to get as drunk and fall over and, then go drive. But at that moment, I was super sober. That just, there wasn't, I don't think I was even really buzzed to begin with, but I wanted to clear that up. People, I didn't want people to think I was just out there trashed and,
Yeah, no, I get it.
Driving like
and even if you were, Bo, to be honest with you, even if you were, listen, and most of the audience can relate to this. I've had many moments where I've drank too much. I've never once had delusions of seeing monkeys or hitting monkeys ever being drunk. So, I mean,
Yeah.
it's kind of irrelevant,
Okay, cool.
but I get what you're saying. I get it.
Okay, yeah. Cool, awesome. So then as, I'm getting up to that light, I'm freaking out. Like I told you earlier, I had tears in my eyes, or I think I was even sweating. I was in a serious panic mode. So I turned left at the light, and I'm just driving. I was speeding a little bit. I was just trying to stay on the road because I didn't know if this thing was running behind me, or I just seriously freaking out. And I'm kind of going, like I said, it's a big U after you turn left at that light, kind of going back behind the lake. And I'm on these curvy roads, and I know my windows were still down at that moment. I don't know why I wouldn't have rolled them up after, but I know they were down because when I started going around the backside of that lake, I swear I heard something in the woods. It's all woods back there coming from that direction. And I heard that it wasn't like the deep, loud scream roaring that when I hit that thing. It was just, I can't really even, explain. I can't even imitate it. It was just kind of like, I can't really even imitate, but there was something like growling, making noise coming through the woods, and it was making a loud noise, but it just wasn't that deep scream. It was just maybe just the thing was just hollering, or at this point though, I was so in shock. Everything was kind of blurry at that moment. I just thought that, but as I was slowing down, going around a curve around there, I heard something big coming through the woods and making noise, and a light roaring like it was running, coming after me. And at that time, I'm hitting the gas, and I remember getting up to speed because at that point I had a straight shot just to get out of that area. At that time, I was thinking these things are just coming out of the woods. Something's going on. I don't know what's going on. There's monsters in these woods coming out everywhere. But then since then, looking back, I'm thinking what that was that creature. But just to back up a little bit, when that little one, I always wondered, why did that thing run right out in front of my car? That didn't make sense. And, kind of just thinking about it, like what we talked about as far as, I think, that maybe when people come out of that lake, a lot of older people, when they turn left, that's the way to head back to town. Nobody really gets up to speed that quick. It's always just probably people, they probably have seen enough people pull out of there. They know the timing, where they can cross and be out of the way. But I think by me gunning it and getting up to speed there, that 75 to 100 yards right there, they weren't maybe expecting that. And I think that the mom or dad or whoever had went ahead and crossed, the little one straggled behind. At the last minute he tried to catch up, and I was already there that quick. And that's my little kind of conclusion of why maybe he just ran right. I mean, it was just perfect timing that he literally ran into me, too. And so that's what I was thinking, that mom or whoever was there that chased me from the beginning was the creature who cut across the lake, woods back there. It's not that far distance for him to run from that point to meet me again over there behind the lake, because I had to go to that light and make a left, and I'm doing a big U around, and he just took a shortcut, straight line, because that's the road everybody takes to go. So I'm thinking that thing knew I was heading that way, and I swear I think I just got lucky, but you never hear of it. I think the thing got so close to catch me, and I clenched up again, and I just that sounds so crazy, but that is exactly what happened.
You're lucky you didn't stop. I think you would have been in for the fight of your life if you would have stopped.
I was going to say later, maybe stuff like that happened, just like what I've heard on your show, put together, it's just covered up so quick by the government. And me, I get nervous even talking on your show, out of respect for you, of what the government does to people. I sometimes I get a little nervous of talking about the government. You know what I mean? I want a lot of stuff like this.
Yeah, you're breaking up a little bit, Bo. I think you're probably right. I think it was probably running you down. As far as the government goes, as you and I talked about, they don't really care about your encounter. They don't care about what you've seen. They don't care about what you've hit. It's only when you can prove it. If you can prove it, then you're a target. You know, if you'd have hit that thing, thrown it in your back trunk, and now it's sitting in a freezer, yeah, you'd probably get a visit. But as far as your encounter goes, they're not going to mess with you, you know. I wanted to ask you, so when you saw the thing in the headlights, can you describe for the audience who hasn't seen one, what did you see?
Yes, like I said, I seen his whole face. It was lit up. Like I said, I got my high beams on, and I remember, like I said, his eyes. They were black, and they did have white around the eyeballs because his eyes were wide open. I remember his nose being like a squished nose, like an ape's nose, because I've seen apes on the internet. I've looked at them, and you always thinking back, you know, it was like a squished ape's, like a squished human nose, kind of wide. His teeth, they didn't have no canines, but they were like ours, the square teeth, and like the forehead. The one thing that I know that stood out, two things that really stood out to me that just are like sickly. Well, one of them's really sickly embedded in my head, but it's just the forehead where the hair come down. Like I said, like, you know, like how Mickey Mouse has got that little point that kind of comes down. That's kind of like what the hair had come down. The hair was on his forehead. And the other thing that is hard to describe, but when I've seen it, one thing that sticks in my head is about like how real it was like, and if that didn't happen to me, if I think of a Bigfoot, I think, you know, like nice fur, you know, pretty or whatever. But this thing was like, if you ever seen like a dead deer up close, like I'm sure you have. Me, I don't really hunt or nothing, because I'm always grew up in the city, you know. But how gamey, I think is the word I want to say, that this creature was. Like the hair was matted. Like, you know, if you see a deer laying there, like far away, they look pretty, you know, nice, pretty fur, but up close, it's like, you know, there's leaves in it, it's matted and got mud in it. That's one thing I really noticed about this thing that stuck in my head, was just how that just really brought it to life for me, you know. And I look at that sometimes about like other Bigfoots that are out there, you know, you see them on pictures or whatnot, but I bet up close, that's just, you probably, I've heard on your show too, how, you know, you see their hair matted, it's dirty, and probably scars. And that's just what I noticed, not scars, but I just really stuck in my head was like this thing was so real that it was just a wild animal. Like, but it was, like you say, bipedal and running, and it was so fast. This thing just shot, like it was so quick. Like I said, it was down maybe on all fours, but it was coming up kind of on three to a stand, kind of running on two legs, kind of right the last second, right when I hit it, you know.
And he said it was all black, the creature.
It was definitely black. The skin, the hair, everything was just black. I totally remember that. And it smashed my car. Like I was saying, like when you hit a deer, the impact, well, this impact, I mean, it busted my car completely up. And the thing with that is I just wouldn't think something that little would do so much damage, you know, because I think on top of it, it was running towards me. I think it had a fast speed because it was just like lightning, you know, how quick it just ran. You know, I had a split second to be like, what the, you know, and then so I watched it run across the other side of the road, right into my car. And like I said, of course, it busted the headlight and the bumper and smashed it in pretty good. It just, the last I seen of it was it flying back, you know, and at this point doing 55, 60 miles an hour, that's when I heard his head. I know that's what it was. I heard his head just hit that concrete so hard that it was a sickening sound, like when somebody, you know, falls and hits the back of their head on concrete, it makes that thump, you know, that thud of a skull hitting concrete. I heard that, and then, of course, that roar just comes of just chaos, of a scream or a roar of just, and like I said, I don't even know my first intention was to hit the brake. I don't even know if I would have stopped if I didn't hear that roar. I still wouldn't have stopped, I don't think, because I didn't know what that thing was. But I just, like I said, I don't know, it's grace of God. And I hit the gas pedal and got out of there. Like I said, went around that big U, and when I first heard that next kind of, not as deep as the roar as that was, but when I heard the first one, when I heard that thing come through the woods as I was taking that last turn on the other side of the lake, getting away, I heard it smash into and I heard it, like it was on a dead run.
I wanted to ask you, when you hit this thing, did it appear to be more human-like, or was it more like a monkey or ape, or
just I think the human features about it was it just being shaped like a human, but as far as like everything else was like an ape, like the Patty film. That's, I think, what kind this was, because it just resembled that thing so much, unlike the orangutan kind or the other types, that's definitely what I would have to say. The human features, I just, other than like the teeth and the eyes, and it being bipedal and come up to two legs right there at the end, but as far as look, so, it was more definitely of an ape looking, definitely more ape looking kind of Bigfoot than the other ones, in which I think the other ones sound a little more scarier looking. But that's when I finally got around the lake and that thing come out right there. I never seen it, and I'm glad I didn't, because that's what my first thought was. These things are coming. Until like later on that I kind of put two and two together. Like, I bet that thing was chasing me and just kind of straight, because he knew what route that the cars take to go back to town. And he was letting us saying, about the if it would have caught me, I'm wondering if I wouldn't have died and then the government wouldn't have covered that up.
Yeah, no, I think you were lucky you didn't stop. I think it was smart you didn't stop, because like I said, I think you'd have been in the fight of your life. I really do. Was there any blood or anything on your car?
Yes, man. And look, I was so scared. Well, okay, so I go home that night. I'll answer that. I was just going to say that when I got home, I was so freaking out that I didn't even, I wasn't thinking, I knew I'd wrecked my car. I went to my mom's house. My room's in the basement. And my car is tore up out front, and there was fur and there was blood and everything on my hood. I mean, not a lot, not like but it was there. And I never really slept because I was worried about my friends and everything that were still out there at the lake. I remember, thinking back then there was no cell phone. I couldn't call and say, hey, get out of there. But I remember thinking this thing's probably, something bad's probably might be happening. And I'm going to go back out there, So I remember thinking just praying God, I hope something bad don't happen to them guys, So the next morning I got up and I ended up calling my buddy's mom. He was staying with his mom. I ended up calling the house there and said, hey, did he make it back okay? And she's like, yeah, his truck's here. He's still in bed. He must have had a late one. So I was relieved there. Well, that next day, I did end up laying down, and I remember my dad coming in and saying, what the H did you do to your car, this and that? And being the dumb kid that I was, I don't even know. I remember waking back up in shock, remembering what happened as Dad's yelling at me. But I don't know why. I told my dad that I hit a shopping cart, and of course he was like, well, what were you doing, driving crazy through Walmart's parking lot? And I was like, Dad, I'm sorry. I admitted I was drinking and driving, and then I told him I hit a deer, and we went and looked at it, and that's what we looked at, the blood and the hair. And I told my dad that I'd hit a deer. At this moment, I did not tell him. It wasn't until about 2 or 3 weeks later that I come to my family and explain, hey, this is what happened. But at that time, I wiped it kind of off, but there was still blood and hair on my car just where I just wiped it down. And because, I told the insurance that I hit a deer and to get it fixed. And, and I look back and, now still at that moment, I didn't know what I had hit, and I was scared. I was scared because in a way I almost felt like I hit a human. In a way, like I did something I wasn't supposed to do.
Yeah.
That's why I felt like I couldn't tell Dad or nobody. Like I was scared to death that they'd make me go to the police department and explain. But then I couldn't really explain what I hit. And so I was just a mess, man. I did not know what to think. And I did tell two of my buddies that were out there, the owner's grandson. He always knew something too, but he never said that. Now that I look back, everything is, after listening to your show and everything, I'll say in a sec, everything that I've learned from your show that I look back that made sense out there. So I remember saying something to my buddies, out there, and they kind of, they didn't believe me, but they were like, "Are you sure it wasn't just a big dog?" Or, come on, man. I'm like, "No, listen, this thing was a couple feet high, and it ran 2 feet on the road." And so, I was a clown, I was a jokester, but really they kind of knew that I wouldn't just make something like that up to tell them to try to look cool to them or something. I don't know what, but it just, it just really kind of, I was really messed up for a while, so I didn't know what to think. I was scared somebody's going to show up at my door, because this thing was definitely an animal. If it was, to clear that up, if it was a human or a kid, I definitely would have had to say something, but I even felt bad, though, for a while, like, I know I killed that thing, and I think I did. As hard as I don't know nothing, other than a Sasquatch that could survive something like that. But I was really scared for a while on if I was going to get in trouble or what this thing was. But now that I'm looking back, and it wasn't too long after I realized, I think, that it was a Bigfoot, but I didn't have nobody really to talk to about Bigfoot. And it honestly wasn't until about a year ago, started looking up. I've always just bounced around on the internet of Bigfoot stuff with pictures, but as far as people's encounters, like I said, I listened to a couple other different shows, here and there. But once I started listening to the encounters on your show, I'm like, oh my God, there's others out there that know what this thing was that I hit. And Bigfoots they're real. They're like a lot of things too on your show. From now, not to back up, but growing up out there, like I talked to you before, we used to see a lot of weird stuff out there at the lake. Ever since I was like 7, 8 years old till 17, 18 years old, growing up with their camp with my mom and everybody. And I think a lot of people out there, like uncles, aunts, uncles of the family that would stay out there and camp, I just feel like I know they knew a lot more stuff going on out there than what they would tell us kids, because we would come across these deer carcasses. I can probably remember 2 or 3 of them right off the top of my head. Years of being out there, I've seen multiple of them, but to where their heads were like twisted around, and antlers. I remember one where his antlers just broke off one of the side of off his head. And I'm not a hunter really, so I got buddies that hunt, but they don't trust me with the gun. So I'm probably the guy like you always talk about your brother. I end up shooting myself, or I don't know. I do dumb stuff like that, but I noticed, looking back at these deer carcasses, like the guts, certain parts of the inside would be taken out, and guts make me sick, blood makes me sick anyway. So I remember looking at that stuff like that. That's not like a normal. And like I said, it's only been the past year that I've learned so much from your show that I can relate stuff back then. As far as with the back legs would just be not broke, but like ripped out of the socket. And I would sit there and I would look a couple of times to see these deers, and I'd always wonder, what kind could do that? We would ask the adults out there, like I said, the aunts and uncles and stuff, whoever, they'd be like, oh, no, that's just, here, leave it alone, don't get near it, that's just So they come up with some dumb excuse, you know, like, oh, that's I've heard say out coyotes, they do that to them, and I just always blew it off like that never made sense. And even like tree branches, big ones, you know, and tree structures, like weird stuff out in the woods, and they may always make an adults go with us out there into the woods, and you know, it like. Or branches would be twisted. I would just always look at stuff out deep in the woods out there like, well, how did that branch fall and get twisted up like that? And then you know, just and like there the lake. There's a couple creeks that went off it, and you always find a couple piles of like little fish stuff. You know, like something was sat there and ate like fish. You know, I'm not a fisherman either, but you know, but you'd see just probably 3 or 4 fishes, you know, which all the body be ripped off, the head would be right there, and it looked like it'd be skinned, like, you know. That just always, the stuff back then I look at, I always be like, what the heck kind of animals do that stuff? But now I'm looking back after hearing your show, and so much has come together, which has made sense. And also, too, I've always heard, you keep hearing about the rock throwing thing. Well, we'd always go out there paintballing, and they would never let us go out on this property by ourselves. Even the older guys out there were younger who would come mow, they would always, you know, make sure there's 2 or 3 of them out there mowing at a time. You know, nobody hardly ever, the parents were always keeping an eye, there's always an adult around, you know, just going back to something more was going on that they knew about out there that, and they, you know, and I think my mom knew too. Later on, I was going to, you know, tell you here in a few, you know, I talked to mom said, yeah, that there's been a lot of sightings and stuff going on out there over the years. So that's just, I definitely think that there's family or whatnot, a lot of activity. And it's not a real big area. I mean, probably a couple miles. I think it'd be adventures off into other woods, but that property, you know, there's old caves and everything back in there, or the old railroad where the gravel pit used to be, and it's secluded. They keep that area super private. Still to this day, it's there. It's owned by the family, and they don't let nobody go back there. But another thing I wanted to tell you, well, I kind of touched base on it with you a little bit. My grandpa's not here no more, but it was about 10 years ago. My grandpa used to go out there with the owner of the lake, the great grandpa who owned the lake years ago. Well, my grandpa used to go out there and fish with me late at night and everything. My grandpa was out there. It is in the 70s. You know, my grandpa was out there fishing with the owner, and it was late. I know it was dark out, he told me. He never told me what time, but I'd say maybe 11, 12 or 1, you know, not too late. But so they were out there fishing, and the owner of the lake, he said he was going to head home. My grandpa ended up staying for a little bit longer. And my grandpa said he got to his car, and he, you know, there's a long lane that goes back through the woods to the lake, and he's driving down the windy road, you know, the gravel road, and you only do about 5 or 10 miles an hour on it, you know. And he was driving out late that night, and who's ever leaves last, usually they'll leave the key with the people to the gate, the key to the gate. They'll leave it with the people who are leaving last, and so they can shut off the gate so the cars can get back there. So I guess my grandpa was supposed to lock the gate that night. So he's actually just pulling down that long lane. He said he kind of turned the corner also with his headlights, and he said it was huge, you know. He said it was black. It jumped up real quick, and I don't know if he said it did anything or something, but it just jumped up and it started. He said he's never seen nothing move like that in his life. Jumped over that little gravel road and ran into the woods. You know, so this was 10 years ago. My grandpa was telling me this because I had sat down with him and we're playing cards, and something got brought up about that lake out there. And I remember I asked him, I said, "Hey, Grandpa, anything weird ever happen out there at that lake to you?" You know, and like I said, the first thing he said was, "Do you mean like Bigfoot?" And that was, I was like, "Grandpa, daggone it, listen, you know, this is what happened to me." And that's what led to him telling me, okay, well, you know, this is what happened to me. And there's been a lot of sightings, a lot of activity out there. And he did say something that, you know, there was a lot more to it. but they just didn't want the word to get out to the community and about the Bigfoots being back there. Not that I don't know if they were like cool with the Bigfoot family or the family that owned the lake were cool with them, but just because I don't think they wanted a bunch of people on that property, maybe something like that. But they always kept it real private. But Grandpa, when he said that, I thought. Then I asked my mom about it later. A few years ago, I talked to her about, hey, Grandpa told me about that Bigfoot out there, and she said, yeah, well, she remembers it was in the late 70s when, my mom was young, living there when he had come home that night. And he said that he was traumatized. He said he was messed up and he stopped going out there. And it was a pretty little big deal, but it wasn't, they didn't, any kind of public with it. They just kind of left it in the family like that,
Right.
And
yeah.
so, no, I'm sorry, Wes. I'm super nervous talking.
No.
I never.
No.
I get a shot to talk to you, man.
I'm a nobody, man. I'm a nobody.
Oh, yeah, right, man. But I don't know. I don't even have cable no more because of your show. I caught heck my life through that, but it's turned back on now. Well, there's a while there I didn't have cable, so I'm never there anyway, and I just listen to your show all the time. As long as we got Wi-Fi, to go on. But I just always look forward to your new postings on shows because,
Yeah, your phone's kind of breaking up, Bo. I know you're a truck driver. I'm kind of losing you. No reason to be nervous. I really do appreciate you sharing it.
damn phone. Wes, I'm sorry, man.
No apologies. You kind of broke up there.
I went with the iPhone 7 Plus here, and it just failing me horribly. I thought, I apologize.
No apologies.
Okay.
I wanted to ask you, what do you think that these things are, Bo? What's your honest opinion?
After listening to your show, and from what I encountered, I definitely, like a lot of people say at your show, it's definitely a real animal. My car, I wish I had a picture of it to show you, like how real, they are. Yeah, but as far as like being like paranormal, there's nothing I don't think paranormal about it. I think that I hate to hear it get thrown in the same thing with paranormal because it's like, you want to say, hey, there's a lion in a paranormal show going on over here because that's a real animal, and Bigfoot's a real animal, and and I think that kind of stems somewhere from the government, like making it out to be like it's just a myth, to kind of keep it in that guideline to where it's like a ghost thing. It might not be real. So I just definitely, I knew you'd ask me that question. I just couldn't really think of a good answer other than like it's like what most of your guests say, that it's definitely a real animal. It's just and with that infrasound thing that I keep hearing about, I don't think just my personal opinion. I don't think they have those superpowers or nothing like that. I think that, like, I've heard of other animals doing something like that. Like I've heard on your show too. I'm more or less kind of repeating it, but I 100% believe it too, that they might let off some kind of sound or something that maybe messes with their prey, something like that, would be the most of it. 'Cause I have heard of other animals doing that as far as like a hunting, like a weapon. But I think that would be the most of anything paranormal with it. But it's definitely just like an undiscovered animal. It's definitely discovered, and I hear I just sound like people I was about to talk about. As far as people will say, well, it's going to take them. I'm not saying nothing bad at all about them. As far as heard people say that they need to drop one or they need to bring one in, but I think there might have been, like I said, from what I've learned from your show, very educational, by the way. But yeah, I think people have done that multiple times, and it just, when the government shows up, cleans it up, when the bank accounts get threatened, jobs, families, farms get threatened, I think people just shut up, and that's that. And I think, the whole thing, I don't mean to talk about the government so much, it just it bugs me. I hear of a lot of people, the main reason I think too the government won't come out with it, from you hear the logging companies, the national parks, all the billions of dollars they'll lose, but one thing I heard somebody touch base on your show one time, and I really liked it, was I think the lying part of the government, I just think that they're beyond the point now of admitting it's real, because they've been covering up for so long that I think that would be a lot of props where it would make the government look like they're just super been lying about this, and you never know. Some lady there, it could be, I don't really know, but as far as like lawsuits, like people could say like, well, if you would have let us know this back then, I wouldn't have lost, my son, to one of the missing people out there. I just think that the government's lied so much to try to cover it up that they're just to the point that they can't come out with it, because I just think they catch so much heck from so many different people. Kind of that's just one thing
I think. Yeah, and I think you're right. I think that Chris Jericho asked me that why the government's covering it up, and I didn't really give him a great answer. The reason why is it's not a simple answer. It's not just X, Y, and Z. There's about 40 different reasons why they would keep it covered up. It's Pandora's box, man. Somebody knows everything out there. And I think that once you open it up, it's a major problem for them. Because now they got to answer a bunch of questions they don't want to answer. Like you said, the missing people. A lot of it's not just a real quick, simple answer. I think there's a million reasons why they keep it covered up, and they keep it covered up, I think, for good reason, in the sense that I think it would just open Pandora's box if they came out and just said, "Hey, these things are real. You can run into them." Well, now there's 1,000 questions they have to answer that they don't want to answer.
Okay.
And that's the reason. And I think, going back to your encounter, I think that when you have an encounter, they don't really care about your encounter. They could care less. Now, let's say you hit that thing, threw it in your trunk, took it home, threw it in the freezer, and you still have it. Yeah, you're going to get a visit. You're absolutely going to get a visit, and that body will be gone.
Right.
That's a different issue.
Okay.
But just hitting one and saying, "Hey, I hit this thing," no one's going to pay you a visit. No one, they don't care. But it's a fascinating account, because it makes me wonder if the adults had crossed. Now this little one was trying to cross, and you guys just hit each other at the same moment.
Yeah, that's the only thing I can put together. Like I said, it's been 17 years since this happened, and just thinking about it. And really, I've only come out a whole lot this past year, which people, my family, I've told everybody, and they know I really wouldn't make nothing up like that. They just kind of are like, well, maybe, after they've watched your show and I've got more involved with my family and Bigfoot stuff, that, they kind of believe it, that, it's a real animal. But at the beginning, it was kind of like, but I'm sure he just didn't hit a big dog. It was more like that.
Well, and I can understand that too. You know what I mean? It's, if you can't explain what you hit, how are you going to explain to someone else? If you don't even know what you hit at that time and you're freaking out, like, and I hear hunters, I've heard hunters say that have shot them, and they start freaking out because you made a comment there. I've heard from hunters who have claimed to have shot these things, and they will say, I for a moment, I kind of felt like I shot a person. And so they start freaking out.
Yeah, man. That's a good point. That's exactly how I felt. I think, I didn't know how to feel. It felt like I thought I was in trouble. I really thought, because that thing, I knew what I seen. And then that roar behind it, I was so freaked out and messed up. I didn't know. It was just something that you wouldn't think anything like that would happen. What I went through, and still today, when I bring up the Bigfoot subject or anything, I'm not talking about that story, but people are like, "Oh, that's not real. Why do you listen to all that kind of stuff?" But I get so mad because I know what happened to me, and I know what I've seen. And I've heard all these great people on your show. You kind of been through the same thing, and that I could imagine, but them living on your property or something, like some of them that I hear. But the point is, I get so mad because they don't know. They live in this, I haven't really lived in the city, but a lot of my friends do in Columbus, and they never get out. And like I was telling you, I drive a semi from Michigan, Tennessee, Kentucky, Pennsylvania, just for this little whole area here. And just in this little area, I'm on the road 10, 12 hours a day, and more than 95% of my drive is just woods and mountains and just, I'm only going through little cities here and there. And it's just like there's probably more out there. I don't really know, more out there than what some people, really know. Because I just look at some of these mountains. I've been to Virginia and West Virginia, just hundreds of miles of just woods, just to where these things could probably living better than we are. And we right here in our own backyard. And like I said, I learn a lot from your show, and it's really open eyes, and it's really brought everything together from what I went through, and it just made me kind of feel more relaxed, like that I didn't, that that this is a real animal, and I can accept now, hey, this is what happened to me, and this is real. This happens, I get, all the time to other people. And
what's crazy to me is all evidence aside, let's just set aside all the evidence. And right. I've done 400 plus shows. Sometimes I have 2, sometimes 3 people on. So let's say 800 right. people I've had on the show. Realistically, okay. I've probably talked to 2,000, but let's just say a rough figure, 600 people. You're telling me okay. that people a guy in Texas is seeing the same thing a guy in Alabama is seeing, the same thing a guy in Ohio is seeing, the same thing that in Washington. And so it's almost more crazy to me to think, if I had never seen one, it's almost more crazy right. to me to think all these people are having delusions of seeing this exact, if a guy in Texas was seeing a T-Rex and a guy in Pennsylvania was talking about seeing a T-Rex and a guy in Washington was talking about seeing a T-Rex and had all these reports, right. it almost seems more crazy to think all these people are delusional as opposed to there might be a T-Rex out there. And so that's the same thing with, that's kind of a bad example, but I mean, it's the same thing with Bigfoot. It's like so many people have seen them and everyone's kind of describing the same thing they're seeing. And this has been going on for decades, if not long, right. well, much longer than decades, but people coming forward, sharing their stuff. And it almost seems more crazy to think all these people are delusional as opposed to maybe they're actually seeing something.
Got it. Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's not to interrupt you. It's just so crazy that I can sit here and talk to you and hear your voice, and like, say a few things. Because like I told you, in my semi, I got the surround sound, some speaker 12s in the back, and, and it's like every morning I get my coffee, I get on the road, and I hit the Sasquatch Chronicles, and I get into it. It's like I hear y'all sometimes talking, and sometimes I just want to be like, hey, like I want to say something, like I want to be in the conversation, and because I agree with you so much on everything. You're right on it, and I just so thankful you called me, and I have a chance to talk to you and just say, hey, this is what's going on over here, and I just at least because like I told you, like I didn't want to come on the show, but because my encounter happened so long ago, but I hear of so many people that they don't want to, but they'll come out and tell their story, and they're not trying to be on your show, and they're just they're taking a step doing it, and that's just kind of what did it. Because I was happy enough just listening to them, but I just wanted to say, hey, this is what happened to me.
And I'm glad you did. I'm really glad you did. I know you didn't really want to come on the show, and I know you're nervous, man. Like I said, I'm nobody important.
You are, though, man.
Nah,
like I told you, I said, man, when you call it, I was like, you're like a movie star. Because I mean, you're not just that. You're doing a great thing, man. My family. I put up my mom. My mom loves listening to you. Just your point of view on the whole situation. And one day, hopefully, when it does come out, I can be like, I was on that Sasquatch Chronicles with Wes. I told you so. All this that you're doing, it's going to come someday when this subject comes out. I would think one day it would, then what you did here, you're the one who brought it to a head. I'm just thankful, man. I was going to tell you, man, I listened to your episode a while back. You started it off by saying, well, I'm retiring, then you went on and you said from poker, you were joking around, I swear if I had a heart attack that day, man. I just about wanted to quit everything. I'm done. I quit driving the truck that day, man. I should have about broke my heart. But no, I don't mean to sound like a crazy fan or nothing, man. I totally into this subject, Bigfoot, and how your show approaches it, the people you bring on it. I mean, it's real stuff. This is just entertainment. It's like, this is really what's going on. And I think sometimes it does take an encounter, to wake somebody up, and somebody actually get up off their butt and get out there. And, most encounters don't go well, I guess. But for me, I'd still be a skeptic maybe if that didn't happen to me, And I just, with these shows they got now, you got, like we talked about the Mountain Man, or that's, and then you got Finding Bigfoot, and it's like the poster boy for Bigfoot is Bobo. So I mean, I'm sure he's a great dude, but that's how people look at some of this stuff, and it's like some of them shows kind of just, and they never find Bigfoot. So I mean, trying to tell other people who've never really had an encounter. Kind of sometimes I don't blame them for taking the subject, because it's such a weird subject. It's a real animal out there, and it's just the government is crazy how it just gets covered up. People, it takes an encounter for somebody to actually believe it. But
I hear you, but I appreciate. No. You're okay, Bo. Okay. I appreciate you, all the kind of words, man. Thank you very much. And thank you for sharing the encounter, man. The encounter was a great encounter. I don't think you had any choice but to hit the thing. But I appreciate you coming on and sharing it very much.
Yeah, thank you, Wes. It's an honor for you to call me, man. And hey, all these conferences to talk about out there, I'm going to make it to them here, especially after the past year, seeing that other people have had these. That there's more people out there. I can't believe how many. There's probably a lot more that we, like you said, that we haven't even heard. It, it just kind of it's really got me into the subject. So I'm going to be someday making it out there, and I'm going to run into you one of these days, at a conference or one way or another, because I do want to start getting more involved in it. It just, I kind of just only been driving the truck for about a year, kind of trying to actually start something different. Well, once I get good on my feet, I would like to make a couple trips, get more involved in it, because it's a real thing, and I want to be a part of it if it does come to a head. Like, I told you so, that's how I want to be to my buddies,
I hear you.
But Wes, I appreciate you, and I'm sorry to ramble on, man. I'm just so stoked to talk to you, bro.
No apologies, brother. No apologies. Yeah, if you get a chance to come out, I'll be at the International Bigfoot Conference. If you get a chance. If you can't make it out, that's cool. But thank you again, brother.
Awesome. All right, Wes. Take care, bro.
And next up on the show, I want to welcome Tom back to the show. Tom was on episode 319. I know you remember, Tom. Thank you so much. You had a very interesting experience on your property there in North Carolina. If you would, for the audience, would you kind of walk us into it?
Yeah, sure. So thanks for having me on again, Wes. So
yeah, of course.
We moved to North Carolina back in 2007. And we lived here since, but I bought a house in 2015, and it was in like a wooded suburban area, and it was one of those houses that they built from the ground up, all new and all that. So we have woods behind the house, and I'd make a fence. I fenced it in after we bought it, and built it in and blocked it in for the kids so they wouldn't go run in the woods and get lost, and the dogs as well. But I noticed some bends behind the backyard. And I kind of just like shrugged it off like, it's nothing. And then one day while we're out having a bonfire, I saw eyes. They looked like green lights above the kids' playhouse. And the playhouse is about 8 feet up in the air, made of pallets. And I kind of shrugged that off too as maybe like an owl or something. But like I said, if I would have thought about it now, I probably would have said it was a Sasquatch, just being curious. So fast forward a couple years after hunting those woods behind my house for a while, I just bow hunt because we live within city limits, so you can't really fire a weapon or you get in trouble for discharging within city limits. So I just bow hunt. I got a couple stands put up. So last summer I built a tree stand on about 3 trees. I made a really nice platform stand up with an extension ladder going to it. So October 27th, I was going into the woods and I forgot my flashlight in the kitchen. It was kind of one of the mornings where I was just rushing out to get my gear and get in the woods before daybreak. And I didn't feel like going back for my flashlight, which I should have, but I didn't. It's one of them real nice, 700 lumen lights that'll light the woods up at night. I get up in my tree stand. It's about 5:45, 5:50 now. And I'm making some noise because it's the ladder to get to the tree stand is one of them old aluminum ladders, so it's kind of makes noise and rattles the tree. And as I'm pulling my crossbow on up into the stand, my cell phone dropped. So I'm sitting in the tree. And I got a little fold-up chair. And I got my crossbow. And I'm sitting in the dark. And about 5-10 minutes goes by, if that, and I hear something that sounds like an owl on steroids or a 500-pound owl about no more than 30 to 40 yards to my 9 o'clock position. And it startled me so bad I was shaking effusively and I couldn't move. And it happened about 2 more times after that. And I'm just sitting there kind of in shock and in awe. And I'm like, that's a Sasquatch. That's not an animal. That's, I know the woods. I know what all the animals sound like. There's a little bit of coyote activity in my area. But it's nothing like that. There's no mountain lion or, and I know what an owl sounds like too. So it just sounded too much to be, like a person owl almost, kind of a mimic sound, and then it had a screechy noise to it as well, almost like we talked about last night, like a chimpanzee screaming. So really, really bugged me out. So after that, I heard another noise at my, 1 o'clock and 3 o'clock position. And it sounded like one of those, like a tongue clicking noise.
Yeah.
I don't know if you ever heard people talk about that tongue clicking. And, wow, this is hard to relive it over again, especially if I'm talking about it. My mind is just racing and I'm reliving this all over again, but I'll try to give it to you as good as I can. Yeah, my heart was pounding. That's all I know. My heart was pounding. My crossbow was in my hand and I had a 380 in my pocket. And I'm just thinking to myself, the crossbow is not going to do nothing but piss it off. The 380 is going to be like shooting it with a BB gun. So I'm just kind of sitting there like a sitting duck in my tree stand waiting for daylight. So I throw my hands up. I couldn't think of anything else to do. So I throw my hands up and just say, hey, I don't want to be bothered. I won't bother you. Just let me be. And, I'll let you be. And probably about 10 minutes later, it was completely silent. And then the light came. And I got out of my tree about half an hour after that, and I started snapping pictures. And what I saw in the woods was amazing. I saw all these tree breaks, these tree bends, a couple of X formations. And I know they're out there, and I know they come around, maybe early October, mid-September, and they probably stay till about January. But that's my land, and it's my, I wasn't really going to come out with this, but I just wanted everybody to know out there that, you don't have to live out in the middle of nowhere to have these on your property. You could live in, like me, I'm suburban Charlotte, North Carolina, and they're there. I mean, I got creeks that run along my house and, about 20 acres of woods, and they come around, they migrate and they do their thing. So.
Yeah, no, I know it was a very short encounter, but I asked you to come on, and I think it's important because there's a lot of hunters who come across, I know you've seen them before in Ontario, and if people want to go back and listen to episode 319, they can hear your encounter, but, it sounds like there was 2 of them there, and as you and I were talking last night, I was telling you, it's almost more concerning not seeing it than actually seeing it because it's more of an unknown. And I know that owl sound you're talking about. I heard something very similar in Texas where it sounds, at first I thought, well, that's an owl. Then I thought, wow, that's a really big owl. And then it went into like a chimpanzee. It messed up its owl mimic. I don't know if it was getting excited or what, but if I had very first heard that and just kept going, I would have thought, that's an owl, and just kept going. But the fact that we stopped, we listened to it, you can hear them change their tone. And you're right, they are closer to us in the sense of being around properties. You talk about the tree breaks and the X formations, and some of that stuff you can pass off as weather, but in some of these areas you walk through and you're just like, what the hell is that? What is this? What is that? What is it? And it starts to click really quick that's not that's not weather damage. Something's doing this. And I don't think most people pay attention to it. I think most people are oblivious to it.
Exactly. Because last year I was actually going around different areas of Charlotte just trying to prove to myself and just, show pictures around a couple of sites. And I was astounded by just how close to roads that these things are. But they're everywhere if you look. If you know what to look for, and you get up, and a lot of people, they do research on computers. But if you just go out in the woods, you don't have to go out in the middle of nowhere. You can go somewhere where there's lightly wooded area, and if you see those formations, they've been through the area, or they're staying there, or they're hanging around or living there. But I was at a place today on a road. Let's see, it was called W.T. Harris Boulevard, which is near UNC University in Charlotte. And I saw about 10 formations and about 8 X's, and within a quarter-mile distance. And I started just snapping pictures of it because I was amazed by how close to the road these things are. I mean, the weather, like you said, there's no way weather did, so many in a small distance, and they all look the same, and they're all perfectly. I mean, these logs are, you and me could lift them together to put them where the way they've been put. There's no way humans could have done it, and there's no way a storm could have done it. It's pretty wild.
Yeah, it is. Well, be careful on your property, will you? I mean, it sounds like they're there, obviously. And, usually hunters encounters and fishermen, those are usually the most aggressive encounters because they're doing the same thing you're doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, deer season. And the other weird thing is I noticed a deer, like this hunting season, the deer on my property, I haven't really seen any deer at all. I'm just wondering if, that they're eating them, they run them off, but I haven't seen like dead animal remains or nothing like that. So I'm just wondering if they scared them off the property or spooked them. But like I told you yesterday, they haven't really seemed to be bothering me or my family that much. I've never noticed them, like after hours, or I haven't had like screaming at night, like in my yard. I've heard like the howling noises that everyone hears and the roars far back, but nothing to like cause me or to make me think that my life's in danger. You know what I mean? I think they want to be left alone and do their thing, and we do our thing.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times if you had that mentality, it's the best mentality because there's less of an altercation. You getting up and yelling at these things, or not really yelling, but just saying, hey, I'm here, blah, blah, blah. I think they will tend to back off when you do stuff like that. Obviously there was probably 2 of them, though, that sound like they were really close to you, especially if you're hearing the clicking, the mouth pops. That's very common with the way they vocalize.
Yeah, it's some communication that, we haven't figured out yet, and who knows what it means. And it could be just a warning alert saying, hey, there's something going on over there, back off or fall back.
I think when they think they're mimicking something. And if you got a good ear, you realize really quick it's a mimic, like you did. Hey, that's not an owl. But I think that's their way of communicating back and forth with each other without alerting us. Your situation is a little bit different, though, because you've ran into them before. So you obviously knew what was going on. Most hunters, I think, would be completely confused on what is going on here. Yeah,
I mean, I've heard the one episode where you had that guy, I think his name was Clint, and he was bow hunting in a tree stand. He saw it, and he was pretty shook up too from it. I can only imagine, seeing it like the way he saw it, and he couldn't really. He was frozen up too,
Yeah, and I think that's how these things get shot. I think a lot of people who don't know what they're looking at, they're in fear, and the worst thing you can do is put a gun in someone's hand, and then they're in fear because someone's going to get shot or something's going to get shot.
Yeah.
That's the worst thing you can do. But Yeah, keep us up to date, will you, Tom? Let us know what else you find on that property.
Yeah, there's a little bit going on there, and like I said, I've noticed I don't know if it has anything to do with being government cover-ups but I did notice there's certain roads where there were formations that I've seen in the past where like companies would come out and they would trim the tree line back about 10 feet, and it's been getting done a lot, and I think a lot of the activity is too they're building a really big byway in the woods. And they're just tearing up woods left and right. So I guess they're having a hard time. These Bigfoot are having a hard time with their, the living environment. So they're just running around wherever they can get to get cover.
Yeah,
at least by me.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think we're encroaching upon them, and I think they are. I think most people will be shocked how close these things actually are to communities, to homes, to. You don't have to go out 50, 60 miles in the middle of nowhere to run into one of these things.
No, sir. And I think that's another reason why the sightings are, within the last couple of years, the sighting reports have just been going phenomenal. People are seeing them everywhere.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. Well, thank you again, Tom, for coming on.
Thank you, Wes. I appreciate it, and I love listening to the show.
Thanks, Tom. And that's it for tonight, everyone. Remember, if you've had an encounter, shoot me an email. My email address is wes@sasquatchchronicles.com. Until next time, everyone.
Something a quiet time.